This is the Bar Stewards Enquiry.
Right? You're talking absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
In what way?
You were an underachiever in life. I saved your bacon one time. You were gone.
You handled that well. I couldn't save you. But you did the right thing.
And that's why you don't know anything about racing, John.
I didn't say I do.
Right?
I'm saying that.
What have you contributed to racing? You're one of these take-out merchants. Take out all you can.
And a very big welcome to the Bar Stewards Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys of systembet.co.uk, and co-presenting with me tonight is John Lang of John Joe's blog spot on Facebook. Give that page a whirl because it's a lot of fun on there.
Evening, Al.
Yes, evening, John. And it's a busy show this week because we're talking about three very hot topics, and we're going to get onto that sooner or later. But we'll start the show off by mentioning, a special mention really, for the retirement of Richard Johnson and his services to the sport. And I have to say, despite the stick he's received on this show from various guests, pundits, myself, and everyone else, what a lovely fella he is. I watched the Luke Harvey interview on at the races, and what a nice man. I feel like I'm in the gates of hell for what I've been saying about Dickie Johnson. What a lovely fella. And he sort of he was a victim really from obviously from punter ranks of probably hanging around the game a year too long, which is why he got the stick he probably did this season, as in he wasn't the Dickie Johnson of old. John, any thoughts on Dickie Johnson's retirement?
Yeah, well, overall, you can't really knock the record, can you? You know, I mean, he was runner up to McCoy about 35 times, wasn't he? And,
yeah,
you know, second most winning jockey. And, you know, I mean, as you rightly point out, we have been getting stuck into him a bit lately because he has decked plenty, you know. But,
well, it's the famous wrong stride 2 out, isn't it? I think sometimes, I'm not saying it could be a bottle, it could just be just judgment, but you know, the fella's been decent, you know, in his early career, and then as I said, I just think it was probably 1 year too many. But the interview was, what a lovely fella.
Absolutely, you know, I mean, he was clearly far too nice a fella to marry into the royal family. I'm glad he got out of that.
Yeah. So I definitely need pulling up.
I think the only person that probably a bit upset about his retirement would be Mark Grant. He's probably spent 6 weeks planning that yesterday.
I think so.
You know, I think it's a nice quiet day, big announcement, and I'll get a nice bit of press.
Yeah, for sure.
He's like a Corbyn apology on the front page of the Daily Mail, isn't he? He got 3 lines.
Paul Salkeld says, where would you rank him, John, in the top jockeys in the last 30 years, jump jockeys? Like, where would you put him?
I've always found him pretty functional, to be honest. That's not knocking him at all. Some of the best sportsmen the world's ever seen have been somewhat manufactured rather than what you class as natural talents, but I'd put him a little way behind, certainly behind Paul Carberry, who I think it's the best I've ever seen. Then I'd bracket McCoy and Roby Walsh, John Frankham, you know. But, I mean, he's up there as a very, very good jockey, very effective rider.
Yeah, I'd go with that. I mean, I'd put him behind somebody like Norman Williamson. I don't, you know.
Yeah, Norm's a flair rider, wasn't he? You know,
I thought Storming Norman was an excellent jockey. Great hands, lovely hands.
Yeah.
And yes, so yeah, we put him as a very decent jockey. And I think
he certainly made the most of his ability, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that's a sign of the times though now, where I don't think we've got any great jockeys over here now at the moment. You know, like National Hunt.
No.
You know, I mean, we could say Flat as well, but National Hunt for sure. I mean, you look at the top riders. Well, who's competing for the title? You know, Harry Cobden, Brian Hughes, and Harry Skelton. Which But yeah, look, they're decent, good riders, but no one's talking about any of them as ever been,
Well,
top
watch
draw.
no, you watch Brian Hill's ride a finish. He's in the girl fanning class,
Flat
isn't
for
he?
Brian.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a tickling stick.
Yeah. So we wish Richard Johnson a great retirement, as I'm sure everyone does.
As long as he doesn't become a pundit.
Yeah, he can. He could sit maybe with Ty Lickey and George Baker on a
Profile is full. No more seats on the gravy train. Choo choo.
Yeah. We've got a second question. Nick Davis he's a regular listener to the show. The Happy Hammer. Is he a Happy Hammer this weekend? I don't know. Even though they've gone on. He says flat racing. He's worried, and he says the sort of dearth of talent that's around at the moment. Like he said, he looks at Lord Glitters, Adabe, and then you look at a lot of the talent recently that's got the headlines on the flat. Enable, Stradivarius, Batash, Magical. They're all 7+. He's right, and he says Poet's Word, Crystal Ocean. We're all winning top events at 5 and over, and he says that he hasn't seen anything like this in 45 years following the sport, John. The dearth of quality, if you like. I mean, I suppose you go back to previous arcs. You could literally have a star-studded arc some years where you get 6 or 7 horses that were all top-class great Group 1 animals, and I'm not sure we could get an arc this year to maybe get to that standard at the end of the season. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think in recent years you come out of the arc and you're never really looking for anything coming in from left field now, are you? It's all like the front four in the betting. It's all about the front four in the betting all the time. Yeah. Whereas years ago, you had
Tony Benn.
Well, 75, for example, a glaring example is 1975, Star of Pale.
Yeah.
Now, that was an Eclipse winner, going off 100+1 in an arc. And it kept good company. It was close to the pace in the race of the century at Ascot. But there was all kinds of horses in that, there was Green Dancer, Bruni that won the Eclipse, the Legacy 10 length, Ivan Jaker that won the race the following year, Dahlia, Alley France. It was a monster of a race. And that was like year in, year out in an arc. Like the best of ours was over there every year, whenever we won our big races, it was all the end at the arc at the end of the year, whether you thought they'd go over the top or not. Right through the 80s, 90s, Generosity and Swab Dancy, that was a failed pack with talent. When Reference Point won it, ran in it, Trampolino, bloody good horse,
Yeah.
And yet now, you get a horse, I don't like slagging an able off, but if she'd been running in that era, I don't think she'd ever have been in a position to get a sniffer winning 3 arcs.
No.
No.
Again, it all comes back in a way to what, and I do agree. At first, when you started saying it a few years ago regarding the Derby, you were an advocate of that O'Brien was basically farming it and ruining it by
and that's right.
And I'm more in your camp now than I previously was. I mean, at first I'm thinking, well, if he wants to run 6, run 6. But then you look at it from a deeper angle, and racing in a way needs champions and needs horses to sort of win a guinea. A guineas and a Derby win is fantastic for the sport, because basically you've done the double Guineas Derby, and then usually they'll go for the Eclipse probably after that, or possibly the King
George. Unless he thinks he's got a Triple Crown horse, he'll go Guineas, Irish Guineas, St James's Palace, Sussex.
Yeah.
Because he'll have 6 with Derby anyway.
Yeah.
And he'll run his usual peloton.
Yeah.
And where would you fit a Guineas winner into that peloton as well? You know, he's not even going to look and give himself a headache because he's not going to make the running with it. Midfield sit might do so much, and sitting out the back, if we go a strong gallop, it might not get home anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, even Johnny G this year, in terms of, you know, like at top of the market in the classics, you know, he's not really there, and that's, you know, to say he's probably our best trainer.
You say his people are going to go well to come up with one every year. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he's got like Ascom and Valiant studs, hasn't he, for Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I mean, to be fair, he's had an absolute golden balls period, really, compared to what they had in the preceding 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, you can expect them to fall off a wee bit. Qatar racing, still very much an unproven quality, I think, with Redler's managing and everything, you know, I mean, I'd like to see a bit more consistency from them.
Yeah.
You know, and what else has he got, really? You know, there's no Honor Braiders in the frame at the minute.
No, it's like I say, Nick makes a very good point, and I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what the answer is to stop it. But again, I suppose it's a bit like what we've seen at the Cheltenham Fez, where you've got a dominance of the sport from a certain part, and that's it. And there's no and whether other trainers aren't able to challenge, challenge.
Well, I mean, the point being, they've got 75% roughly of the top road mares.
Yeah.
And they don't give a flying shit if they're wasting half a dozen of them offspring at 3 years old.
No.
As long as they win Guineas, Derby, and Public Ledger.
Yeah.
You know, they'll waste 5 in the Derby.
Yeah.
And they won't care.
Well, I mean, Coolmore and the likes, they'll waste many talented fillies and colts by busting them on the gallops. You know, because they're trying to find the pecking order. So by doing that, you've got to work the brains out, because if you don't work the brains out, you won't know.
I mean, they'll be on that long gallop going like hell. Yeah.
So it's the ones that have got the constitution and the physical well-being to survive that regime, I think. Because
that's it. Magda's not interested in standing anything that wouldn't stand that.
No. So they're not bothered. It doesn't matter if the mare was a Group 1 winner, the sire's Galileo, but if they've got a colt or a filly, it doesn't matter to them if they break it, because there's always another one.
Yeah.
Whereas other trainers that have got that sort of progeny, that sort of horse flesh, will be more careful.
Yeah. And if you've only got one, it's simply not worth going to Epsom. Because what do? You know, I mean, you're stumped, aren't you, for riding instructions, for starters. Yeah. You know, what do you do? And unless you've got an absolute champion, where you don't give a monkey's whether you place third, fourth, or in the car park.
Yeah.
You're absolutely snookered on tactics.
Yep, it's true.
Because if you chase them pacemakers, you're giving these other four a lead.
So maybe Nick's got a valid point here. This could be worrying times on the flat.
It was like that. It was like I said to you off air, late. I think we need to hit rock bottom for anything to happen.
Yeah.
And rock bottom will be when we have 4 runners in the Derby trend in this country.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's too far off.
No, fair point. Great question, Nick. Great sort of analysis there. I think, you know, it's hard to argue with what you're saying there. Yeah. Right, we move on to our first of our 3 topics this weekend, and it is micro ownership. And Ian Davies, who again is a regular listener to the show, he starts us off here by saying, on micro ownership. Now, just to explain briefly, micro ownership is where you will pay a very, very small sum, maybe anywhere between £40 and £80 for 0.0000001% of a horse owned by, it could be running the Guineas, the Grand National, whatever. You get a nice leaflet, gallop reports, blah blah blah, potential stable visits, ballot maybe to go to a race course. So that's what micro ownership is. And Ian Davis says it is one of the basic rules of life. If betting is a mugs game, unless you know what you're doing, racehorse ownership is an even bigger mugs game, with the same caveat that if you're shrewd, you can occasionally nick horses, foolishly putting claimers, etc. Inherited wealth spent over a lifetime by chinless idiots sustains the game at the top, along with cash squandered by successful business people who seem to have their business brains surgically removed the instant they get into racing and are offered their first horse. Further down the food chain, you have hordes of My Little Pony horse lovers determined to be separated from their life savings by getting involved in rip-off racing clubs. Leases, they don't even own the horse, just pay the bills. And now micro-ownership. Answering a scam call and following the instructions would be a better investment. He's probably summed up the entire topic before me and you discuss it. But, John, micro-ownership. Recently, Nick Luke brought it to attention on Twitter that I'm not even going to mention the owners because I'm not giving them a plug. But certain groups, he itemised where the money was going. So if you're £50 and you got your welcome pack and you know and this, that, and the other, apparently I read that 30% nearly went as a management fee, and it worked out that if they sold sort of 1,000 odd shares or 5,000 shares, they'd sell a cheap horse for hundreds of thousands of pounds. I mean, is this value? Is it a rip-off? But yet, I've also seen happy owners that have defended these clubs and said, "I'm really happy with what I've paid." John, thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, them happy owners are licking the window of the taxi on the way home as well. I mean, honest to God, this really is a glaring example of how racing as an entity views the wider public. It just basically sees them as something that's there to be emptied out as quickly as possible. And once they've had the money off them, get the next one in as quickly as possible. And there's no thought for the future or the future well-being of the sport, generating interest, generating long-term following or anything. It is basically get 80 quid off him and then tell him to go home and shut up. We don't want to know, you know. I mean, and they don't. I mean, we've all had situations where we've tried to advise trainers when there's been bigger than micro shares involved, and they don't want you advising them or anything else. I mean, basically, they just want these people chucking the money in the pot so these idiots can just blaze on in their own sweet way, run them where they want, run them how they want. No pressure because there's no one owner going to give them a right coating for running it in the wrong place, wrong tactics from jockey or whatever. And it's basically giving trainers and syndicate managers a license to act like idiots and with no comebacks.
I mean, I will play devil's advocate on this in a minute, but I agree with what you're saying wholeheartedly. That's my point of view. But I mean, for me, do you think though this is very clever marketing? Because if you think about it, what's easier to sell? A horse that's running in the Grand National, and you can have basically a photo of it, a detailed about its gallops, a video about its gallops, and it costs you £40 or £50, and you sort of feel involved. Whereas you try and sell that Grand National entrant for £25,000 for a 10% share. £200 or £300 more than that, £400 a month training all in. It's a hard sell to try and syndicate it that way. So what they've thought of is, I know what we'll do. We'll just appeal to the hot air balloon brigade. You know, the Virgin, you know, the day trip that they sell. You know, riding a supercar, going a hot air balloon. So we'll target that crowd and we'll charge, you know, 50 notes.
Well, it's a quicker kill day. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
But conversely, would you rather sell that 80 quid share once, or if, like trainers used to have to do, you had to encourage people to come down maybe 5 or 6 times, watch the horses, have breakfast with you and all the rest of it, but then you've got them, and they'll spend 2.5 Gs every year on a quarter share in a 2-year-old.
Yeah. You see,
because you've built that interest, you've built that long-term following. This system, all you're doing is taking 80 quid off them and ignoring them.
Pretty much.
Because you get the elite out, and that's it, you know what I mean? And no, none of these people are going to dare ring up and say what's going on. No.
It's a kind of... You have to. I mean, apparently, one group has 150 maximum per horse, or somewhere in that region that they actually manage. But then you balloted. I read one site thing that where you could have stable visits, but you had to pay on top. So you know, there was one group that was doing. So yeah, you could.
They'll be opening up like stately homes next and having a raffle when you go.
I mean, look, the thing is, what kind of worries me in a way, you've got Nick Luck. I've seen other senior racing personalities promote this as if this isn't a bad thing. It's cheap. You get information on the horse. You get gallop reports. You get this. You get that. But when you, when you break the bottom line down of the costings, and literally, it can be as little as like 1/5 of your money has actually gone to the purchase price of the horse. The other 4/5 is made up in complete admin rubbish.
I'd be asking how many of these shares Nick Luck's got, because I think you'll find they won't buy any.
Right. It's just
it's short-termism, and it's all they can see. They can't see the bigger picture. That they need to get this following into racing. There isn't the people there that are just going to allow you to take 80 quid off them year in, year out. They're going to get sick.
Shall we be brutal then and finish it by saying that there's that many thick people that they're just willing to just part with 60 to 80 quid and think it's value?
Well, they're thick, but I don't think they'll do it 3 times. They might do it twice. But, you know, 3 times would be pushing it. And I can't see it happening.
No. Right. Well, whatever your thoughts on micro ownership, me and John have more or less summed it up there that it's a rip-off, basically. There is no written value. You can say, oh, well, I bought it for my husband for this, that, and other, and he liked the letters and he liked the emails and the pictures of the horse, the videos of the horse, but in reality, you won't. It's like buying a star from another solar system. Oh, you can name.
If a last bloke made one of them as a present, honestly, she'd be in the cellar with Princess Latifah. Tell you.
Brilliant. So yeah, so me and John not a fan of micro ownership, but like I said, the biggest surprise for me is the amount of what I would call credible people on Twitter, credible judges, and some saying that it's actually not a bad way of owning horses. Don't agree.
Ingratiating themselves with idiot trainers, that's all they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, because they'll all know some of these idiots that's got 1,000 shares available in this 65 rated camel. You know, end up putting a bulk value of 180,000 on it.
I did read one case where someone subscribed to this horse, and I think it was destined for great things. I think it ran once in 2 years, so it's not all good. Right, we'll swiftly move on because we've got limited time on the show to our second topic, which is affordability checks. And this is not good. Entain have entered the arena this week. That's Ladbrokes, Corals, amongst other groups, and more or less said that they are going to introduce affordability checks to all to decide for safer gambling. And this has massive repercussions for the industry. In fact, enormous repercussions, more than what people realise, because the funding of the sport that we love relies on levy. Now, if you're refusing custom because you're bringing in legislation, there is not enough funding. Well, I've got a mole in the BHA. And would you believe it or not, John, that the BHA aren't concerned by this at the moment?
I would certainly believe it.
I mean, I've actually sort of been given a response by somebody relatively high up the BHA, and they say, well, it will only affect a certain amount of punters. It shouldn't affect the funding of the sport, blah, blah. I mean, these guys are just, if they can't see what's coming, for me, this whole debacle, which is supposedly going to be used to protect punters from obviously gambling problems and serious harm, within the families. I get this. I get that there needs to be some sort of action and legislation. What I don't understand is why the rules of this sport are just basically, and I mean, if they can't see what's coming, the bookmakers for me now are going to have free rein to trim their client lists. And I've already said this, that the bookmakers will leave the high rollers that they know that are good punters and doing it in regular, and they want the £5 and £10 punters, and that's it. And everyone else in between can basically, can I say it, go get fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when that comes in, literally then the BHA are then wondering why that their funding then gets lower, and the game's in the gutter. I mean, we've seen how ground racing's gone.
The BHA won't worry until the hedge fund that manages their pensions starts squealing.
Yeah.
Then they'll realise. In the interim, they'll just all sit there doing the blowfish impressions, sitting around the table. Because that's as good as they are. That's as switched on as they are to what might happen in the future.
I totally agree. I totally agree with this, because that response that I've seen, like I say, I'm privy to this information. I can't name names, obviously, but that's the sort of BHA official stance at the moment. They're not concerned by Entain entering. They're surprised, but they're not concerned.
Because they probably don't understand.
No.
They probably need somebody to go along and explain it to them. This is where we're at. This game is run by idiots. There's no two ways about it. They're outmanoeuvred at every stage by bookmakers, by government, and by an awful lot of punters. And they're certainly outmanoeuvred by practitioners of dark arts within the sport. Well, because they couldn't catch a cold, and they're going to catch a cold over this when the money comes up short. That's for sure. Well,
I mean, to add fuel to the fire, to prove that this is not just here. So, I mean, apparently at the moment, and again, this is what I'm hearing on the grapevine, obviously because I'm sort of connected with these people, is that there are also serious professional punters on Betfair at the moment that are currently going through these checks, and this is an enormous worry, I think, for all concerned. I think it might not seem, when it doesn't affect normal people, they're not bothered. They just switch off, and it'd be fine. Nothing to see here. But from what I'm hearing at the moment, that there is worrying signals coming from the Betfair exchange as well that are basically apprehending these punters to these checks. Now,
let's not forget, Lee, as well. As things stand, the BHA do not want successful punters in the game.
Well, no. Why would they? They need
Because,
more levy.
we're on gross profits tax.
That's right. They need more losers.
So anybody that's any use at the minute, the BHA aren't going to stick up. So they'll be glad they've gone because, again, there's short-termism.
Pretty much. It's. But can I say that a lot of these successful punters have also bought racehorses and provided trainers a living, and and this is the thing. It's like a big pond.
BHA can only think of one thing at a time. Like, come on.
It's a big ecosystem. You've literally got, if you've got winning punters, they're likely to buy horses. I know lots of professional punters that have put a lot of money into the game and provided jobs. And again, it is like a big ecosystem. And once you start messing with it, which is what they're currently doing, they really are messing with it in a big way, then you're going to get some severe repercussions for the sport further down the line. And this is what we need to highlight now, not in 2 or 3 years when the game is caboodled and fucked. We've already seen levels of prize money from sort of 15, 20 years ago that is superior to the prize money levels now. And that, if that's not just a warning, you've seen trainers en masse go to France. You've seen owners saying, I'm having French runners from now on because of the prize money. Again, if this isn't alarming the BHA, it should. And Entain doing this before they were pushed, by the way, this is not legislation. This has not been brought in by the government as of yet. It's not even been discussed in Parliament. But already Entain, i.e. Ladbrokes and Coral, are wanting to bring this in as prejudice against punters from having a bet. It's just, I'm sorry, but this is just apparently wrong, and it needs more airtime, and it certainly needs the BHA not to have this, well, we're not overly concerned at the moment, unofficial response, because obviously that's what I've been told. Now, that's where we're at. It's very annoying and very worrying.
It was always on the cards that this gross profits deal was going to throw up at some point a glaring conflict of interest.
Yeah.
And I think this is the biggest one it's thrown up yet. I would ask the question, will J. Payne McManus have to undergo affordability checks? Well, look at it this way, Lee. Say he's paying himself a crap salary out of his company.
Exactly, yeah.
And he has to prove what he's earning from his company.
Yeah.
And he might only be paying himself in a year what he bets the first 2 days at Cheltenham.
Yeah.
It's quite feasible, that.
It is. We all know that very wealthy people will take modest salaries.
Yeah.
Because
so would that be adhered to then? And they say, no, you can't top up.
Yeah.
You've had enough, son. But if he screams, hang on a minute, independently wealthy, that's surely the loophole we all get through.
Yeah. I never envisaged this for the sport at all. I really, especially before the trigger's been pulled. I'd understand if Parliament had discussed this and sort of voted in favour of liberty restrictions in terms of what you're allowed to deposit into your betting account. But imagine doing this miles before. This could not be introduced until 2022. So why are they doing it now?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, Lee, insofar as it's the big bookmakers wanting to get the problem customers out of the hair, because I'll tell you now, if they didn't want to do this, there are so many lobbyists in Parliament, in the Tory party.
Yeah.
Phil Davis, Esther McVeigh, they love a bit of hospitality at the races. And they would have been screaming Parliament down over this. Erosion of civil liberties, nanny state, all the rest of it. Fudging the bill when it goes through.
Well,
they'd have been at it.
The government's got an 80 majority, so literally, if they're,
And the fact that they're not tells you that they want it.
Yeah, it's yeah. So anyway, it's just more if it's not affecting you by you, I'm saying the listener, it might do in time, and this is why it's dangerous. Anything where anyone's introducing anything on your civil liberties, i.e., your decision to put £200 or £300 in a betting account and have £300 on a 3-to-1 chance that you've been waiting to run for the last 3 months, only then for the bookmaker to decline because they're saying no,
You can't afford it.
you can't afford it. That is dangerous times. That is very, very dangerous times. We don't want this sort of life. No one wants this sort of life. We want to protect the vulnerable, of course we do, but we don't want restrictions to everyone else in life because a very, very low percentage, fall foul of an addiction, which is gambling, same as alcohol, same as any other vices, if you like, if you want to put it as a
thin end of the wedge, this.
Absolutely. And it's not fair. It's not fair on the bet, and more people should basically speak up about this. This should not be brushed under the carpet, and you should fight for the right to be able to have the stake that you want to have on the horse that you fancy at a big meeting without these ridiculous restrictions. Anyway, we'll move on to our final topic, which is racing's big court case. We've got the two contenders.
In the blue corner.
In the blue corner is Frederick Ironside Tylicke taking on Graham Oliver Reed Gibbons in the red corner. John, thoughts on this court case?
Desperate stuff from Tylicke here.
Yeah.
If he wins this, I mean, God alone knows what happens to the game. Do they start running in lanes? Can we get jockeys willing to go out and ride in races? I don't know. It's awful. There has to be a certain understanding where if you choose to be a jockey, you're taking a certain risk, and if you get injured, you need to be insured. And that's top and bottom of it. Because, I mean, if they grab Gibbo by the ankles, turn him upside down and check him, they're not going to get 6 million ever. So, God alone knows why he's doing this, you know what I mean? If Gibbo gives him 30 quid, I mean, at least it might keep him off the telly for the fortnight.
Well, again, Ian, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, him and George Baker, probably. But, I mean, Ian Davies comes in with the Ironside Reed debate, and he said, while my heart sides with Ironside, the law degree I somehow obtained from Warwick University, 81 to 84, is telling me you want to be Reed's lawyer for this one. And of course, this is the thing. I've read it all, and I cannot for the life of me think why Tylicke thinks he's got a case. Because if you discuss every sort of like buffeting, you've took my ground issue, there'd be no races ridden ever again, because basically no one, you could get insurance to ride a normal race, because if this wins, it sets a precedent that if someone cuts you up in running and you happen to just fall off and break your arm or whatever, that then you end up in court. Well, how can you have that in horse racing? It's impossible. It is what it is. It's a very tough sport to ride in. And I cannot see for the life of me how this case can win. Put it this way, they couldn't even get Kieran Fallenbank to write on Ballinger Ridge in a court because the prosecutors could not ascertain whether it was a bent ride or not.
How much did Stuart Webster get for him pulling him off his arse?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that was as glaring as it gets.
That's it. So if this was to rule in Tylicke's favour, you're setting put it this way, I'd like to see Jockeys insurance after that, because it'd be sky high, because literally if you
we'd be strapping chimps on at home, wouldn't we?
Well, it's just
I mean,
nonsense.
obviously in some cases a chimp would be preferable, but
yeah. So myself and John's betting here is we're about 1 to 33 the Funky Gibbon, Oliver Reed camp, and we sort of we're about we'll have a big over round here, John, because we like a point-to-point bookie, so we'll go fives.
Yeah.
Ty Licky winning court case, you know. So anyone wants to come with any bets, just let me know. Anyway, Raoul, it's been a cracking podcast, this, and some great talking points. We're going to finish it off on a more sort of light-hearted note. I've got no Jimmy Lindley this week because I haven't really. I'll be honest. I've got behind with my video work, so I'm sorry about that. So I'll make up for it next week. But we're going to talk about a potential golfing Masters winner this week, John. Andrew Bluck demands that we tip a bet in the Masters, John. What's your tip?
Well, I'm a great believer in horses for courses round there. So, while studiously avoiding Rory McIlroy, I think Justin Rose is massively overpriced at 66 to 1. 66. And I will certainly be having a few quid on him.
On the old Rose, yeah.
Solid.
I mean, I can remember him when he won at that quirky course, the one that, was it the old, I don't know, Sam Snead or Ben Sayers, the Philadelphia one with a funny flag sticks, and Rose won the Open there, the US Open there. Cracking player, love the fella. I've got to admit my golf knowledge isn't very much, but what I would say is any McIlroy backers. I mean, you've got to be crackers. It's about McIlroy. I mean, the lad freezes round there. The course
he's sweating up coming out the paddock, isn't he?
He's sweating up on his toes. You know, I mean, he's put cheap pieces on in the past. It's made no difference. He had blinds on for the first time. You know, he's burst out the traps and then faded. You know, he's whatever.
Except clenbuterol, hasn't
he? Poor Rory backers. I think you're going to be forever. Just keep backing him and doing it in.
It's one of them, isn't it? You know.
So Blucky, John Lang there with his Masters selection. We've got a terrific show coming up on Friday because we've got the Ginger Hitler. He's just an absolute varmint, and you know we've the
spoiler of spoilers.
We fought tooth and nail to get him on the show, and believe me, he's going to get it. And he's on Friday for the big Grand National preview for next weekend. So it's a show.
He's a bit stuck actually because obviously he'll want to tip the favourites, but when he finds out I've got an each-way double going on to it, he'll want the favourite to get bait as well.
Oh yeah, he's a strange kind,
so
and you don't want to miss the Grand National show with the Ginger Hitler on Friday night at the usual time. That's all from me and John. I hope you've enjoyed the debate on this Sunday sermon. Bye for now.